Hello friends, my name is Shivam from DevOps Schools and I will help you to enable your learning process in various technologies of DevOps, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data and many more. This is our initiative to help you by sharing multiple tutorials and videos. And if you want any specific tutorials or any particular topic, then please do comment in the below comment section and I will help you with it. Also, please subscribe to our premium services on YouTube, which will give you access to more content and videos to enhance your knowledge about all these topics. Also, if you want me to help you with regards to the online trainings and classroom sessions by our qualified trainers, then please do write me at contact@devopsschool.com. Thank you.
This is how you question. All right. This is how you decouple your layers to have more fault tolerance in your applications. All right. Now, one way of decoupling is also by using load balancers. Okay. So you may use ELB. ELB automatically distributes incoming application traffic across multiple targets. So unlike in the first case here, in the first case you have just one logging service and it is tightly coupled to that service. Whereas in the optimized case, we are having more than one service, which is target. These are the targets, and ELB will appropriately route traffic to the targets. Now, ELB will distribute to different types of targets. It can be EC2 instances, it can be containers, or it can be different specific IP addresses also. It can handle the varying load of your application traffic in a single availability zone or across multiple availability zones also. ELB can span across multiple availability zones also. This will increase the fault tolerance of application. You can add and remove instances from your load balancer as you need. If you want to add more instances to your load balancer in the fleet of your servers, you can add them. If you are not using, if you are having more than required instances, you can even remove them without disrupting your application's overall request and response. You can configure your load balancer to accept traffic specifying one or more listeners. Okay, listener is a process that checks for connection request. ELB also scales your load balancing device as traffic to your application changes over time. You can scale to a big majority of workloads automatically. Let's say you have 2 servers today, you want to scale to maybe 20 servers at spur of moment. ELB will do that for you. You can also configure health checks, which are used to monitor the health of the registered instances, so that the load balancing device can send requests only to healthy instances. If there is an instance which is unhealthy, the load balancer will not choose it as a qualified target. If the load balancer detects any unhealthy instance, it will stop the traffic. Okay, and it might resume once the instance is healthy again. So you have to also have the mechanism where you bring back your unhealthy systems as well. So decoupling is important for building asynchronous applications, which are supposed to scale horizontally. It becomes very important in cloud. It is important. It lets you scale by adding more instances always, and it allows you to design innovative models on the cloud. If you are not doing this pattern, you are not harnessing the features of cloud. And then you have to have a right choice of load balancers as well. What load balancer to choose from? Network load balancer, it operates at layer 4 in your TCP IP layer OSI model, and the load balancing of TCP packets happen. You want to design high performance applications. This is something which you get it from. So when it comes to selecting the appropriate load balancer, your choice should be based on application needs. What is the need of your application? If you need flexible application management, the TLS termination, we recommend that you use application load balancer. If you want to route something on application content based thing, or you want to get path based routing, so those features you will get it by using application load balancers. If you need high performance and extreme performance and you need static IP, we recommend that you use network load balancer. Application load balancers are best suited for load balancing of HTTP and HTTPS traffic because that operates on layer 7. All right, and it provides advanced request routing target at the delivery of any modern application architectures. If you have microservices or containers operating at individual request level, then layer 7 or application load balancer is ideal for you. Application load balancer improves the security of your application by ensuring that you always have TLS ciphers and protocols are used at all times. AWS Certificate Manager may also be used to provide certificate management at ELB. So certificate management, you have services for managing certificates, and if you want to check the certificates which are coming from the application, you may want to use certificate manager as well. Network load balancers are best suited for load balancing of TCP traffic where high performance is required. Operating at connection level, layer 4, it operates at the connection level. It routes traffic to targets without knowing the content of request. It doesn't want to know what is the content coming in the application. Due to this fact, there is no encryption offered by network load balancers. It doesn't do the encryptions for you. So the client will have to take care of the encryptions if you are using that sort of mechanism. Right. So if you feel any gaps in this topic, you may want to look at the load balancing documentation and also some of the frequently asked questions on SQS, ELB, and EC2. Route 53 is also something which you may have to look at to understand the domain name translation on cloud. And chapter 8 in this official study guide will also help you understand more about this topic. So let's look at some of the sample questions which might fall in this category. Which of the following AWS services facilitate the implementation of loosely coupled architecture? Select two answers. So now you may want to narrow down. So the question is quite clear. Which services will help you to implement loosely coupled architectures? You want to answer this? It's like a knowledge check.
I think D is sure, right? Elastic load balancing, and B.
Yes, awesome. So that was what we thought of. By the way, I'm not looking at the chats. Excuse me. Do I have any questions here? All right.
Are we getting the recording of this the whole course?
No, you will not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Yeah, this is the right answer. Loosely coupled architecture, you have SQS and ELB. So determine how to design a multi-tier solution architecture. How do you design a multi-tier architecture solution? How? Okay, this is the objective. So in that we will talk about Elastic File System, which is a fully managed service by AWS, and it allows you to set up and scale file storage easily in cloud. You can have a file storage which can scale easily. Okay. And this storage will be used along with EC2. File systems will support full file system access semantics. Okay. This is similar to your EBS, but this can be highly scalable, and it is designed to work with multiple EC2 instances simultaneously. It can be thousands of EC2 instances which can parallelly use this EFS file storage. So this is file storage in the cloud. We see this is like a shared storage, and you can scale. You can automatically scale from gigabytes to petabytes of data without needing to provision extra storage for you. Tens and hundreds or even thousands of EC2 instances can access EFS simultaneously. EFS provides consistent performance to each of the EC2 instances. Even if you are connected by hundreds of EC2 instances, you will get similar performance for each EC2 instance. And you can have a shared storage, by the way. This is designed to be highly durable and highly available. There is no minimum fee to set up, and you pay as you use. It is using the NFS protocol for storing the file system. So this is how you can design architectures using EFS. Okay, you may have to have a mount target in one subnet, a mount target in another subnet, and all these three subnets or EC2 instances can access the same file storage. Okay, so this EC2 instance is accessing via the mount target. This EC2 instance is using the same EFS via the mount target. So you are all these EC2 instances are mounting to the same file storage. So with EFS, you can create a file system, mount the file system on an EC2 instance, then read and write the data to and from to your file system. You can mount an EFS file system in VPC as well. You can access EFS concurrently from Amazon EC2 instances in Amazon VPC. So applications that scale beyond a single connection can access this file system also. EC2 instances running in multiple availability zone within the same region can access this EFS also. That is something which is remarkably good feature, that EC2 instances which are running in different availability zones also can access this. But they have to be in the same region, obviously, because that's where your data center is.
Is it the same VPC or the same region?
Same region, I'm telling you.
Or they can be different in VPC also.
Yeah, you can have it. No, but it may be possible that in your VPC you may have different availability zones, right?
Yes.
And so you may also want to do across that. So that will give you a sort of shared data source.
Okay, thank you.
So we recommend that you access the file system from a mount target within the same availability zone. You always have to have a mount target. And then we come to the S3, which is your object storage. S3 is a repository of internet data, object storage. It provides access to reliable, fast, and inexpensive data storage. And it is designed to make web applications scale computing easy. It enables you to store and retrieve any amount of data any point in time from within EC2 instances or anywhere on the web. The data can be accessed and stored from anywhere on the web. EC2 stores data objects. It provides redundancy by storing it on multiple devices across the same facility and multiple facilities. It allows concurrent read and write access to these data objects. Okay, so separate. If you have many separate clients and they want to have concurrent access, you can still provide that. So it is available across the region. It is designed to be highly durable with 11 nines durability. You have the storage classes for different storage classes for choosing. And you can encrypt your data at rest using standard encryptions or customer specific, client specific encryptions also. And you can also do the encryption of data in transit by using the TLS mechanism. And you also have the ability to version your data for recoveries. Now you may want to provide access control to your EC2 instances. The type of access control mechanism which is supported is either resource based or user based. ACL, you may use ACL, which is like resource based policies that grants permission of to the buckets and objects. So that is a sort of resource based access. In resource based groups, there are bucket policies, bucket and object ACLs. Each bucket and object has an ACL associated with that. So you can use ACL to give read and write access on buckets or objects to a group of users. And then you have user based permissions. There are IAM user policies. IAM policies define permissions for an action. With ACLs, you can only grant to other AWS accounts, not specific users, access. Bucket policies in S3 can be used to add or deny permissions across some or all of the objects within a single bucket. Policies can be attached to users, groups, or S3 buckets. You can assign policies for retrieval or writing data. It enables you to have centralized management of all permissions. With bucket policies, you can grant users within your AWS account or other AWS account access to your Amazon S3 resources. Then there is this concept of glaciers. Glaciers is suitable for secure and long-term storage, low-cost storage for archiving. You can reliably store any amount of data at costs that are competitive and cheaper than on-premise storage. To keep cost low, for varying retrieval needs, AWS Glacier provides 3 options for accessing archives. We will see that. So there are this retrievals, expedited, standard, or bulk. Okay. This also is encrypted storage, just like your S3. S3 object lifecycle policy will also enable you to move to glaciers if you want to do that at any for any amount of data. You want to use S3 object lifecycle and move to a glacier after some point in time. Maybe like an example, if your application is generating some logs which are stored on S3, you may want to retain that to infrequently accessed or frequently accessed data for a week, and after a week it can be moved to infrequently accessed data, and then after a month maybe it can be moved to Glacier, and after a year or as your required choice you may want to also delete the data from the Glacier. So that lifecycle policies can be automated. It is again regionally available and it is highly durable with 11.9 durability. If you have some gaps in your understanding, you may want to look at these topics. Amazon Glacier documentation, then you have frequently asked questions on EFS, S3, Glacier, Amazon CloudFront. And then you have these 2 labs, one is for simple storage service and one is for EFS. And then in the same objective, we'll see at the sub-objective, which is to determine how to design highly available and fault-tolerant solutions. So as a concept, you have to always remember this fact. This is well said by the CTO of Amazon, Werner Vogels, that everything fails all the time, and you should plan. You should always plan for failure and build highly available systems in your architectures. In a highly available solution, the system will continue to function even when any component of the application stops. So it is a best practice. You should ask the following questions for each of the component. Like you should have the questions: what happens if this component fails? Or what happens when any component which you specify, it slows down? You have to ask these questions. You have to then group the components together and ask the same question while avoiding single point of failure. This is something which we have to keep in mind, that you always avoid single point of failure to achieve HA, high availability. In order to achieve this HA, you always use multiple AZs. You may have to deploy in multiple availability zones. and you may also want to choose more than one region also. You always use auto scaling, and you should make use of highly available services in Amazon, such as RDS, S3, ELB, DynamoDB, SQS. These are some services which are highly available, and if you use them, you may provide high availability to your applications. So to add fault tolerance to your application, to your architectures, okay, the more loosely coupled your system is, the easier it scales, and the more fault tolerant it can be. So you have to achieve loose coupling, which enables your environment to be more fault tolerant. It is one of the key features of high availability. When fault tolerance is built into an architecture, the applications will continue to function without degradation in performance, even if there are failures or a complete failure of any component in the architecture, you will still have high availability. With a loosely coupled distributed system, the failure of one component can be managed in different tiers, so that the fault do not spread across or beyond that single instance of failure. Achieving fault tolerance on AWS, you use the HA services to provision enough capacity to ensure that there is still sufficient compute. You always have that. And you want to guarantee fault tolerance to your architectures. Something to fill your gaps. There is this course on AWS well architected framework. This is something which you want to, you may want to look into if you want to design you want to meet this criteria. Let's look at some sample questions here.
So one request before, sir, we would like to also hear that why the other answers are wrong. That is like more important than why it is right, because you know the answer, so you can click it.
That is what we are doing, right? If you have been following, that's what we have done. We have eliminated the wrong answers first before coming to the right answer. That's what we have done.
No, the reason why we eliminated and what is the use of it, that is also important.
So that's the context, right? So that is the subject what we have to carry. So if you remember, if you go back in the question maybe which we spoke about, where we answered about your storage choices, we saw why a specific answer is wrong. Let me loop back to this question. When we spoke about this. Yes. So this question asks you about what are the choices for you to facilitate loosely coupled architectures.
Yeah, so like no, just like one line, what is a cloud? Like a one line cloud trial, one line, okay, cloud. So that is also really important. That's what I mean.
I mean, when you are in this course, I mean, it will not be difficult for me to answer those things, but when you are in this course, it is expected that you should have that one liner with you. What is CloudTrail? CloudTrail is for monitoring your application's logs. Okay, that's not something which is used for loosely coupled architectures. What is EMR? EMR is a service for your big data applications. Okay, it provides you MapReduce algorithms. And ELB, so whatever topic we are coming to questions, right? So we are coming before that we are addressing a topic, and then we are coming to questions. So that way I'm trying to eliminate it. But if at all you have any specific question, you can ask me. I may not talk about everything because if I talk about maybe SQS, CloudTrail, load balancing, EMR, then immediately you might have some question about EMR. Okay, what is EMR? Then it will dilute the topic. So if you have any question which is not discussed in this topic, you may ask it, and if time permits, I may even answer it.
Thank you.
No problem. Yeah. So we spoke about this. Everything fails every time. Yeah. So let me read this question first. Your web service has performance SLA to respond to 90% of requests in less than 5 seconds. That's your SLA. In normal and heavy operations, distributing requests over 4 instances meet your performance requirements. What architecture ensures cost efficient high availability of your service in an availability zone if an availability zone becomes unreachable? So you have to read this question, and as usual, you have to highlight your specific clauses to understand this question better and answer it appropriately. So let's do that. Let's highlight the important clauses in this application. So it says that your application has a performance SLA to respond to 90% of requests in less than 5 seconds. And in normal and heavy operations, distributing requests over 4 instances will meet your performance requirements. It is mentioning that you have 4 instances which will meet the requirements in your application. Now it is asking you to select what is cost efficient, what is the cost efficient way to provide high availability in your service if any availability zone becomes unreachable. So these are your important clauses which you have to note down. Now let's try to answer this. So the first choice is deploy the service on 4 servers in a single availability zone. Second choice is deploy the service on 6 servers in single AZ. Deploy it on 4 servers with auto scaling across 2 AZs. And deploy the service on 8 servers with auto scaling across 2 AZs. What do you think is the right answer here?
D.
I will choose C.
And there was some other answer?
Sorry?
There was some other answer also, right? No?
Because the A is unreachable. The C.
So your choice is B, right?
D for dog.
D for dog. Okay, no worries. So let's understand the answer lies in this question only. It says that distributed request over 4 instances will meet performance requirements. So the question is itself telling 4 instances. In that case, answer B and D will be eliminated. 6 and 8 servers they are talking about. 4 is enough for your requirements. So B and D is eliminated. Now it's telling that if service in an availability zone, if it is unreachable, if an availability zone becomes unreachable, what do you do? So if a zone is going down, if you are deploying all the 4 servers in single availability zone, this answer will fall wrong because they are all in same availability zone. So you are only left with one choice, which is to take the C answer because you are deploying in 2 AZs, right? So the answer is there in the question.
What about if one AZ goes down?
So we have 2 AZs, right, here in this case?
Yeah,
in the choice, what
so one AZ goes down, so that means it will have like only 2 servers, right?
Yeah, but it is still providing you the availability, right? So you have to choose cost efficient. You have to understand that you may give 16 servers also, but what is the cost efficient way? Today, what is your requirement? So it is not telling that you always have to have 4 instances ready at any given point in time. That's not the solution. It is telling that 4 instances are enough to meet your performance requirements.
Thank you.
So cost efficiency is something which is of importance here. So there are these small minute clauses which might fall in the question, and ignoring that will lead you to a wrong answer.
So how can it maintain the 4 instances if one AZ goes down?
Please enroll our general membership for $399 plan to get access of all the parts.
Along with that, you can access our other tutorials such as Docker, Ansible, Jenkins, Terraform, Splunk, AWS, Azure, and various other DevOps related premium tutorials with our channel membership. If you would have any issues with our channel membership, you can drop an email to us at contact@devopsschool.com, or you can also unsubscribe from channel membership anytime if you don't want to continue or did not like the video. To get our channel membership, click onto the join button, select the $399 plan and grow your skills immensely. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries. We will reply to them at the earliest. Thanks for watching.